Welcome back to r/JustNoHoa, where people share stories about their crazy homeowner associations that make us feel better about not living in an HOA. And in case you are new around here, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to join our awesome community. Without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one is titled HOA Hates the Sound of Freedom. I live in a township, so in Ohio that means I can hunt and shoot on my own property. I also live next to a HOA, but not in it. I also have some crazy neighbors who seem to think that my property is their property. Example, I live on 2.5 acres and I would probably say 70% of it is wooded with a large amount of 100 to 150 plus or minus year old trees. I had just moved in back in March, and one of the first things I did was walk around the property and locate and remark all of my property stakes to know exactly what was mine. And I also marked all of the standing trees that were dead and needed to be cut down. And then a police car shows up because one of my crazy neighbors that I have caught multiple times trespassing on my property thinks that my trees are apparently her trees and didn't want me cutting down the dead ones. So on the 4th of July week this year, bunch of guys from work asked me if I wanted to go shooting at a local outdoor range. When I asked what range it was, I told them no, why don't all of you just come over my house and we can shoot for free and not have to drive for an hour to a crappy range. And they asked, well, what about my neighbors? And I said, F them, that is exactly why I bought this property, to do whatever the hell I want. So I posted on the local neighborhoods group to give everybody a heads up if they hear a bunch of gunfire on that Friday afternoon. There's no need to freak out, I was just using my range with some friends. And of course, that is when the fun started. There was a good mix of people saying great wish they could come, and then a bunch of the HOA busybodies complaining that I cannot do that, and that the noise would be offensive, and they have rules against it, and so on. Now flash forward to the Thursday before, and I am out in the yard setting up all of my steel plate targets on my 100-yard range when I see a police car pull in the driveway again. So the sergeant says, you can probably guess why I'm here, laughing. And I said, yeah, I probably have a good idea. He says, I just want to start off saying you are 100% right and you can shoot and hunt on your own property and it is not a problem. But since we had a bunch of calls, I wanted to stop out here and talk with you that way we don't have to bother you at all during your shoot tomorrow. Lol, he says he just wanted to stop out, introduce himself, meet me and take a look at the range real quick, and everything looked great. So this way, come Friday, if they get a bunch of calls into dispatch, they won't have to send anybody out and they can just let everybody know on the phone call that everything is legal. So Friday comes along, in about 6 guys from work show up and we went through probably 1,000 plus rounds in a couple hours from 22s all the way up to my 50 BMG I let them play with. 2 of the guys brought guns with binary triggers, so we were doing some 30 round mag dumps for fun as well. Later that night I go back on the website to see what the posts were like, starting off with sounds like the party started, along with people whining and complaining that they called the police and were told that everything was legal and there was nothing for them to do, and commented with, well, I guess the police won't do anything until somebody's shot. Yeah, that's right, newsflash, the police don't arrest you for pre-crime. That would be like them pulling you over for speeding before you have left your driveway because you might speed down the road. And guys, I'm wondering, have you ever shot your guns in your backyard for fun? And if so, have your neighbors complained? Let us know in the comments. And the next one is titled Dusting Off HOA Nobody Knew Existed. We have owned our home in Michigan since 2012. There has been no HOA activity in the time we have been here, but I cannot check the deed until Monday to see if there is an HOA provision. A few months ago, we received a letter from a woman in our subdivision stating that there was an inactive HOA that she was going to revive and announcing the first meeting. In the letter she stated there would be an election of officers and that the bylaws stated only members who owned lakefront lots were eligible to hold those seats. And yes, that is a very small minority. There are probably 200 homes in the area, maybe 10 to 20 of which are on the lake. A small community uproar at the meeting resulted in the officers saying they were going to hold off until they could get more information. Fast forward to today, the next time we have heard anything, we received a bill for $25, which the HOA stated is to cover the insurance we need for the community common spaces. My husband called the woman who said that she had filed papers with the state to make the HOA legal and that if we don't pay, they will put a lien on our property. She wouldn't tell us when the meeting was held or who the officers were, except to refer us to the secretary. Honestly, no offense, but we are not the HOA type people. If there had been an HOA here, we probably would not have purchased the property. But it is what it is. My question is, how can I find out if this HOA has any legitimate legal standing or if I can tell her to go pound sand? And a user in the comments said, the bylaws sound very suspicious. If only lakefront property owners can be officers, doesn't that effectively disenfranchise the other 190 homeowners? Don't pay anything to the HOA, look up with the county, township or city for articles of incorporation so you can see if an HOA really exists and to get a hold of the bylaws if it does. If the HOA is real, I would rally the neighbors to elect like-minded neighbors and try to dissolve the HOA. I am totally with you, I would never buy property under the authority of an HOA. And another user said, if it is real and the restriction is legal, they need to find the lakefront owners who don't want an HOA, make sure they get elected, and then they can go about either dissolving the HOA or removing that restriction. And you know guys, that sounds like some sort of zombie pandemic that is coming back from the dead, in this case the HOA, after being put to sleep for decades. Probably the biggest nightmare of any new homeowner. But I guess trying to dissolve the HOA by electing like-minded people to the board seems like a pretty good option if this HOA is in fact legit. And by the way guys, if you have watched until here, I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and post some star emojis in the comments if you would like to support my channel. Thank you very much in advance, I am very grateful for your support and I read each and every single comment. And now let's move on to the next story. Update to the dusting off an old HOA story. Everybody here was so helpful, I wanted to provide a quick follow-up. I stopped by the township offices today to check for any deed restrictions and the clerks there were aware of the kerfuffle already. Small town. The township supervisor invited me back to his office and we chatted about the HOA. While I was there, another resident who lives on the lake just happened in and ended up joining us. He had a copy of the bylaws. The short story is, the HOA is simply not a legal entity. I am almost embarrassed for the old woman who wrote them, but it turns out her heart was in the right place even if she's not quite right in the head. Longer story, the developers went bankrupt and the HOA was dissolved at that time. The community areas were purchased by the township and they maintained them. Not very effectively, but nobody is complaining about that. I mentioned that I was only aware of 2 public areas. Turns out the other 2 are also lake access points, so there is a small empty lot designated as a park and 3 right-of-ways we non-lakefront owners can use to access the lake. The other resident explained that there is a new lake home being built on a lot that abuts the northernmost right-of-way, and apparently that has one of the elderly residents absolutely convinced that they are going to take away that public access. She is the resident that started the HOA. Note that she already lives on the lake, she's just trying to keep it open for everybody. So it is hard to stay mad, but then again, I haven't had to deal with her face to face. The township supervisor told us that he's going to try to reason with her and that we don't need to retain counsel at this point. It would take a majority of property owners to vote to revive the old HOA, and that we should absolutely not pay any dues or fees. Having said that, I wanted to again say thank you for your help. I was able to discuss several points intelligently, thanks in no small part to the guidance I received, and I very much appreciate the time and advice. And guys, in this case I also did a little bit of further research, and as it turned out, the residents could somehow convince the old woman to not revive this old HOA. So basically, the nightmare is over before it even really started. And the next one is a story from r/Am I the A-hole, and it is titled, Am I the a-hole for declining to help out my nosy HOA neighbor who likes to complain about me? First, I would not even ask here if my neighbor had not gossiped to everyone in our building about this, but since I have gotten mixed feedback from other concerned neighbors, I will just ask here. Am I in the wrong for saying no to my neighbor? Background, my neighbor and I have never gotten along since I moved into the building. The building is a condo that is professionally managed by a property management company, much like an apartment, but it also has an HOA that basically hires the management company. I'm not really in tune with the structure, but suffice it to say, the HOA makes up all the rules and the management company enforces them. My next door neighbor on my floor is a busybody who is both on the HOA board and involved in the architecture and improvements committee. Part of the job of this committee is apparently to police decorating decisions of the residents to make sure that what we do is in harmony with the safety and aesthetic standards of the community. She has already complained about the planters on my balcony because they are not the right color, and about my Tinder friends, too many visitors, to the board. I know because I have a friend who is on the board. I have long ago decided I want nothing to do with my nosy neighbor. The problem is this: I spent Friday night at my neighbor's and he asked me to drop off his ballot because I was going on a jog the next day and the drop box that is a couple miles from our building is en route. I agreed. In the morning, on my way back to my unit to freshen up for my morning jog, my neighbor caught me in the hallway on our floor and she saw me holding a ballot envelope. She stopped me and asked me if I would be a dear and drop off her ballot for her as well. I simply and politely said, sorry, I can't. I don't feel comfortable doing that. I had my reasons, but I didn't feel like going into them with her. First, she has complained about me on multiple occasions. There's no reason for me to go out of my way to help her. Second, she has proven herself to be the complaining type. I don't want to risk her accusing me of fraud or somehow mishandling her ballot should anything go wrong. She was angry and gossiped about my unwillingness to help her out even though I was dropping off my ballot. I didn't tell her I was actually dropping off my friend's ballot. This morning the HOA sent out an email reminding all of us to be cordial and kind to our neighbors despite these polarizing times. Now I am wondering if I should have just taken her ballot too and dropped it off for her. And guys, I am curious, what do you think in this story? Is the old P, aka the author, the a-hole or not? Let us know what you think in the comments. And a user in the comments said, not the a-hole, I am mad reading that, mad at the nosy neighbor, the people who gossip with nosy neighbor, and mad at the HOA sending out that email like you were not cordial. Cordial doesn't mean saying yes all the time, it can mean politely declining. And someone else agreed, exactly, you were cordial and kind. You don't have to do any favors to anyone to be cordial and kind. The fact that she gossiped about you and complained to the HOA means that she was the one who was being neither cordial nor kind. And the next one is another Am I the A-hole story, and it is titled Am I the A-hole for putting my neighbor's garbage on her porch because she keeps using my garbage cans? I live in a townhome complex with a pretty strict HOA. I got a new neighbor around 6 weeks ago. I will call her Elaine. Elaine moved in around 6 weeks ago, and since she moved in, I have noticed her putting her trash in my trash can. Elaine's trash makes my trash so full that the bin cannot close. She sometimes puts her garbage bags next to my bin also. The city will pick this up, but the HOA does not like to see trash bags or open trash cans in front of the house. They will fine you. The cost for trash pickup in my city is around $300 a year, $25 per month, and it costs around $45 to get a bin if you don't already have one. The first time I saw her doing this, I confronted her. She said that she was waiting for her bin and she didn't want her trash to pile up. I said, fine, you can put your trash here for now, but make sure that the can closes. If not, you need to hold it. A month passes by and Elaine is still using my trash can. I asked her what was going on and she claimed that she could not afford to get a bin right now and apologized. At this point I have received 2 notices about my trash cans overflowing. I told her she could no longer put trash in my can. Last week I was off from work. I saw Elaine again putting an enormous amount of trash into my trash cans, and when she left I took her trash out of my cans and placed the bags into her porch. It turns out that Elaine went out of town, so the trash sat for about a week in front of her door. It was disgusting. I wasn't home when she returned, but my wife was. My wife says that she came to our house throwing a fit about the garbage. She said she had several notices from HOA and had been fined and asked why we put disgusting trash in front of her door. She got into a very heated argument with my wife. My wife called me up and told me about what happened. She thinks I am an a-hole for the way I handled this situation because now we are not on friendly terms with our neighbor. I just don't think being on friendly terms means that we should be taken advantage of. She needs to pay for her trash to be collected like everyone else. Was this an a-hole move? So now guys, please let us know in the comments what you think about this story. Is OP the a-hole for not wanting to let his neighbor use his trash? Or rather his trash can? Let us know what you think in the comments, and someone in the comments wrote, not the a-hole, Elaine was asked not to continue to overfill your trash. Elaine is an adult and should understand basic courtesy towards her neighbors. Why is it okay for you to receive notices due to her actions, but once she receives a notice for her own, it is all of a sudden a problem? Maybe the fine will inspire her to afford those trash cans after all. And another user said, definitely not the a-hole. If you are living in a place with an HOA, you can afford a garbage can. It should already be a requirement for living there. OP, draft a letter and let your HOA know what she is doing. Using your can for a week or 2 while her can is coming is okay, but it is well beyond that now. And the last one is titled, Am I the a-hole for refusing to clean up luminaries after HOA put them in my yard without consent? This happened a few years ago, but my mom keeps bringing it up like I am in the wrong. A few Christmases back, the HOA decided to decorate everyone's yard with luminaries. I was already very uncomfortable with having flaming candles in flammable paper bags on my heavily wooded lawn, as it was a huge fire hazard. But my mom insisted that they were only doing something nice for us, so I let it slide and just kept an eye on them. Here is where I may be the a-hole. A few days had gone by, it had rained and the soaping wet candle bags were still in my yard. We get a letter from the HOA stating that the other neighbors had already cleaned up their luminaries. Now it was our turn. I contact the HOA back and insist that they put the mess in my yard without my consent, so they need to be the ones to clean it up. They try to spin some BS about being a part of the neighborhood or whatever, but I insist that if it is not off my lawn by tomorrow, I will dump the mess in front of their headquarters. My mom is afraid of the HOA and cleaned up the mess herself. To this day she insists that I was a huge a-hole for always going against authority, but I don't think the HOA has authority over anyone unless you allow them to. Am I the a-hole here? And once again, Ripe Stars, please let us know what you think about this in the comments, and I would personally say in this story, the OP could indeed be the a-hole because what he did seems kind of childish to me, but let me know what you think. Anyway, a user in the comments said, you are the a-hole, you don't own this house, your mom does, you are not standing up for yourself, you are causing problems for your mom, who is subject to whatever she signed with the HOA. Not your house, not your lawn, not your fight, your mom gets to decide how things are handled, not you. And guys, unfortunately we have already reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's stories, and if you haven't already, please also go to patreon.com/ripeyoutube, where I upload exclusive Reddit videos starting at just $3 a month. This is a great way to support me in case you are interested, and the chance for me to become independent from YouTube revenue. Thank you so much for watching, please don't forget to subscribe and like the video, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.